Eddie Chavez, Ruben Nava, and Jesse Romero. Jesus 911.
Jesus 911 on Virgin Most Powerful Radio. Good morning, everybody, all our radio listeners. We have a two-man card. I am 10-8 with my partner, Jesse Romero. Good morning, Jesse. How are you doing?
Reporting for duty, sir. Yep, we're 10-8, John 3:16. That's us.
That's right. That's right. Hey, just before we get started, I read something about it's a feel-good story. There was two Florida teens they happened to skip class. These are a couple of soccer players from a Christ Church Academy.
Right down your alley.
Yeah, they were swimming out at the beach, and they just drifted, and they found themselves 2 miles offshore and getting tired, fearing they were going to drown. These were Christian kids, and the young boy says that he cried out, "If you really have a plan for us, Lord, come on, just bring something." Just then, a boat came by, and guess what the name of the boat was? Amen. The boat was named Amen, and their prayers were answered. They were scooped up. The captain of the ship said, "Hey, we heard some screaming." They rescued them, and there's the kids are saying there's no other reason, no other explanation in the world other than God. And so God answers prayers, and but just don't put yourself in that predicament. But
That's right.
It's a feel good story. So
yeah, we need some of those feel good stories every now and then, Ruben, because we're dealing with a lot of stuff coming at us.
Yeah.
Let me give you something else feel good.
All right.
Today at Holy Mass, the responsorial psalm today was, "Into your hands, O Lord, I commend my spirit." Alleluia. Psalm 31. I'll tell you why I like this psalm particularly. There's two reasons.
Our Lord
Every
said,
Jew, before they go to sleep at night, every Orthodox Jew and conservative Jew, Hasidic Jew, in their night prayers, that's the last prayer that they pray before they close their eyes, is Psalm 31. And so that's the last prayer that Jesus prayed on the cross.
That's right.
Psalm 31, "Into your hands, Lord, I commend my spirit." Well, why did Jesus Christ pray that prayer? Well, you can say culturally, he was taught that prayer by Joseph and Mary. Every night before they went to bed, all three of them said their night prayers together in Hebrew, and that's what they prayed. And so it was very natural for Jesus at the foot of the cross, as he's about to die for the sins of the world, he would pray as a good Jew, but also as taught by mom and dad, the final prayer before you close your eyes. "Into your hands, O Lord, I commend my spirit."
Great
Pretty
prayer.
cool information, huh?
Very good. Great prayer. Jesse, I'm a little ticked off. I saw a video yesterday that just completely floored me, and I wanted to fly out to Philadelphia and deal with this lawmaker myself, man. Just there's a video that's going around that was made by this a politician in Philadelphia, and he went out to a Planned Parenthood, and he started calling out a older lady who's there praying a rosary and trying to save babies, and he just laid into her. It's shameful, and yet he used
it was shameful and evil, Ruben. I would actually say it was evil what he did.
That's right.
Because as Catholic men, you and me live by it. And I'll tell you why it's shameful, because you've been out to pray in front of abortion clinics, and you're probably wondering, man, if I wasn't there and somebody got in my wife's face, you would be livid. I've prayed out in front of abortion clinics with Anita, my wife, for years, well over a decade. Well over. Her and me have prayed in front of abortion clinics for going on 15, 20 years. And so when I saw that, I took it personal. It's like if somebody would get my wife Anita's face when I'm not there, some thug bully, I was just boiling when I saw this video yesterday. The video it's a Pennsylvania Democrat Representative Brian Sims, and he's harassing an elderly woman. And he records himself, Ruben. This guy's proud of what he's doing.
Yeah.
This guy is verbally assaulting an elderly woman, praying the rosary outside Planned Parenthood. Now, here's something interesting. Let me throw this into the mix. Do you think, Ruben, that this Democrat representative who's rabidly pro-abortion, oh, by the way, and he's active homosexual. Again, he embraces the culture of death issues. Do you think if he saw a female Muslim wearing a headscarf, because they also have beads, they have prayer beads, they're not called rosaries, I forget what they're called. If she was in front of an abortion clinic with her prayer beads praying in Arabic, do you think Pennsylvania Representative Brian Sims would have acted in the same manner? What do you think?
Absolutely not, because the left are in bed with the Muslims. You know, they have a common enemy in
Christianity,
right?
Yeah.
Just before we get into this article, let me just, so our listeners know right off the top who this guy is, man. This guy, Brian Sims, he was born in 1978. He's a Democrat, obviously, and he was elected in 2012. He's also a lawyer, activist on LGBT civil rights. Did I tell you I'm for LGBT too, Jesse?
Yeah, really, I didn't know that. Really
interesting.
That's a new one on me, really.
Liberty, guns, Bible, and Trump.
Ah, that's what I thought.
Okay.
I thought your acronym was a little bit different.
All right. He was born in Washington, D.C. to a son of two Army lieutenant colonels of Irish descent. He was raised in the Roman Catholic Church.
Oh, no.
But
how embarrassing. Lord help us.
But he stopped attending church at the age of 16. Therein lies the problem. He's so full of guilt, Jesse, that he's putting on his guilt on other people. Sims lived in 17 states before settling in Pennsylvania in the early 90s. He later completed his undergraduate studies. Doesn't matter where he went to school, but he was a football player. He was he was the captain of the Bloomsburg University football team. Was recognized as a scholar athlete, and during the 2000 season, the longest season in Division II school history, he came out as gay to his teammates, and in doing so, he became the first team captain and the only openly gay college football player in NCAA history. And so that's where he's coming from.
Ruben, I'm going to tell you, I've noticed that the angriest people in society oftentimes are fallen away or former Catholics.
Oh yeah,
and I'll tell you
the most
why.
anti-Catholics too. Yeah,
yeah, and they become anti. I'll tell you why. Because they know in their heart of hearts that what they're doing is wrong, and the fact that they've abandoned Jesus Christ and his church. And so all that guilt, Ruben, it turns into rage and anger, and it turns into ungodly rage and ungodly anger. And this guy, when you watch his video, he's a classic example, because what does Jesus give us? Peace, serenity of conscience, his life and his love in our soul. That's called sanctifying grace. When you don't have that in your soul, that sanctifying grace, you have the opposite of peace. You have the opposite of serenity of conscience. You have the opposite of tranquility and the love of God. You have hate, you have anger, you have rage. And I'm telling you, this guy is exhibit A for what happens to a Catholic when you walk away from Jesus.
Amen. So let's get into this article. So he goes on his video on Twitter and he retweets this. He's been out to abortion clinics before, so it's not the first time he's posted, apparently. So he's a state representative. He harasses an elderly woman who's peacefully advocating for the lives of preborn human beings, and women who are considering abortion. And we think this is shameful. Yet he calls her shameful. Pushback
He
against.
was calling her names, Ruben, for about 9 minutes. It's the 9-minute video.
Yeah.
And here's the difference between what I've seen in my life between a Republican who's homosexual and a Democrat who's homosexual. If a Republican's homosexual, they're just kind of like, hey, I'm just quiet about it. I do my thing, live and let live. But when a Democrat's homosexual, they get mad and insult you if you oppose them on this moral issue.
Yeah, they're not.
This guy, Brian Sims, is a perfect example of what I'm talking about.
They scream tolerance until it comes back at them that we're not tolerant of their views. So, so they think that everybody has to go along with them. That's the meaning of tolerance. No, it goes both ways, partner. So pushback against Planned Parenthood protesters. He's out there. He's calling them he's saying that they're white. He's calling it white privilege and shame. He says, calling them racist, classist, bigots who need and deserve our righteous opposition. Why does he just look at the number of minorities that are being killed through abortion? Especially the blacks, and it's the numbers in Philadelphia are through the roof as well.
Yeah, Ruben, and also another thing: 80 to 85% of abortion clinics are situated in Latino neighborhoods or in black ghettos.
Yeah.
So this guy, this Democrat Pennsylvania rep, is out of touch. The abortion industry targets minorities. So if he wants to be a champion of minorities, like he's coming off as a pillar of morality, he would be opposing Planned Parenthood because it systematically targets the annihilation and extermination of minorities.
Well, he's not looking for truth,
Nope.
What is truth? Like Pontius Pilate said, he doesn't know it. He has no clue, but he wants to push his views on everybody else. And so anyway, we're going to come back to this topic on the next side of the break. You're listening to Virgin's Most Powerful Radio. Stay with us, and if you have any comments or questions, dial 888-526-2151. We'd like to hear from you.
This is Terry Barber inviting you, all the men, to a men's conference June 15th at the Sacred Heart Chapel. This is going to be a day where we're going to talk about true masculinity. There's a problem in the Catholic Church today. We have very few men who love the Catholic faith. And I know a lot of the wives that I'm listening to right now saying, I want my husband to be on fire for the faith. Send him to the men's conference. Your son, send him to the men's conference by going to virginmostpowerfulradio.org or call 877-526-2151. That's June 15th. When your husband comes back from this conference, or your son, they're going to have a different view about their Catholic faith because they're going to meet three men who love Jesus and his bride, the church, and are going to instill in them a love for Christ and his church, the Eucharist, Our Lady. Bring them to virginmostpowerfulradio.org. Sign up there or call 877-526-2151. Full sheen ahead.
It is only because of your continued prayers and generous donations that Virgin Most Powerful Radio can broadcast live each weekday. We count on your spiritual and financial support because you understand the urgent need for Catholic programming that shares the gospel with clarity and charity, but without compromise. Please prayerfully consider becoming a monthly donor. You can set it up with the touch of a button on our website, catholicrc.org.
Buying or selling your home or your business property? This is Terry Barber. Real Estate for Life underwrites the Terry and Jesse Show. And they can connect you to one of 900 pro-life real estate agents around the world. And when they receive their referral fee, they will give 80% of it to a pro-life organization. Wow! That's 80%! realestateforlife.org, 877-LIFE-US1.
Now, back to Jesus 911. If this call is not an emergency, dial 888-526-2151.
We are back. Jesus 911, two-man car. We are 10-8. We're giving you some Catholic briefing. All right, roll call. So give us a call. Join the conversation. And we're talking about a Democratic lawmaker who assaults an elderly woman praying outside a...
This lady could be his mother or his grandmother.
Yeah. So it was shameful, Jess. Let's pick up where we left off.
Yeah. Okay. So we're talking about Pennsylvania State Rep Brian Sims. He recorded himself a 9-minute video as he's shamefully insulting and berating a Catholic woman by herself outside in front of a Planned Parenthood abortion mill. I guess it's out there in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. It's his district. He's got a smartphone. He's putting it in her face, and he is just shouting at her. And I noticed, Ruben, that he seems to be very agitated by the prayers of the rosary. I can tell you this as somebody who knows and has been involved in healing and deliverance and spiritual warfare. Demons hate the prayers of the rosary. It agitates them. And everything, the way he acted, Ruben, he was triggered by the rosary. It tells me that this guy is in a very dark place in his life.
Oh, yeah.
He kept calling the lady names like shame and shameful and shame on you. He was using Saul Alinsky methods. This was a socialist agitator back in Chicago back in the 60s who was teaching people how to organize communities and get your way through agitation and through name calling, through ad hominem attacks. Also, what he's doing right now in this video, this Democrat representative to this Catholic lady, there's a new term that you hear people using. It's called gaslighting. Okay, he was gaslighting here. So what does that mean? Gaslighting means when you're trying to verbally manipulate somebody by psychological means, and you're having them question their position, question their own sanity by insulting them, psychological attacks, making them question, are they right or are they wrong? This is exactly what this guy was doing. It's a new term that's been used in the culture. It's called gaslighting. And Ruben, I'll tell you, this guy was born and baptized Catholic. Shame on him. He was picking his target. Saul Alinsky also said to his community organizers, pick your targets. Who was his target, Ruben? An old white lady by herself praying the rosary. Wow, this guy's a real tough guy.
Yeah, he found her. He found her alone. So, guys, we gotta protect our women and out there. So we got to get out there more. There's more women out there on the front lines praying at abortion clinics. And,
this wouldn't happen if there's more Catholic men out there.
A few months ago, I got a call from Terry, and there's a Planned Parenthood down the street from the chapel, from this radio studio here at Queen of the Valley Hospital. And I'm not sure if it's Planned Parenthood, but they do abortions there. In any case, they're always picketing there. They're always praying the rosary there. The 40 Days for Life, that's one of their places they hit. And Terry called me and he says, "Hey, Ruben, what are you doing? You got time?" The bishop, I think it was Bishop O'Connell, was supposed to be there at the 40 Days for Life, and he's not there yet. But there's some cars that are going by, and there's elderly women that are being harassed. I said, "Terry, I'll be right there." Man, I dropped what I was doing. I dressed down, and I jammed over there, and okay, ladies, I'm here. What's happening? They were the idiots were gone already, but it gave them some comfort and solace knowing that I had their back, and so that we got to be more vigilant ourselves. We got to get out there and protect these ladies and do what's right. So this guy,
Ruben, there's a word that as Catholics we've been using this word since the Middle Ages, and the word is chivalry. Chivalry, a basic definition of chivalry, it means discipline, it means skill, it means bravery in the face of adversity, and it also means protecting women and protecting children. That's the definition of that medieval term, chivalry. This guy, Brian Sims, has no chivalry. He doesn't protect women. He insults them, and he doesn't protect babies. He advocates through legislation for them to get killed. And so this is the exact opposite of what the Catholic Church stands for.
Yeah. And there's a signature that's going around. They're asking for people to sign it. They want to recall this guy. People are trying to at least to him to be reprimanded for his behavior. And this guy was saying, he was telling her, "Show your face. Why are you hiding your face? You were out here talking to women just a few minutes ago, and now you don't want to show your face. What are you ashamed of? And so the lady just didn't say anything to him. Maybe a couple times she might have said, "Hey, get the camera out of my face," but she didn't yell back at him or anything. So she said to the woman that although she has a constitutional right to protest, that doesn't mean you have a moral right to be out here. What is he talking about? Absolutely, we have a moral right to be out there. The moral issue is killing of babies. That's what's on the line here. And he says,
I'll tell you what, Ruben, he really spoke his mind there. And what do I mean by that? If the Democrats would take over both houses and the White House, guess what would happen?
"Oh God,
there would be no right for us to go out there and pray in public."
Yeah,
what he said, Ruben, came from the depths of his heart. You have no right to be out here basically and praying as a Catholic. What he's saying, if you read between the lines, is, man, if we take over both houses and the White House, lady, you'll be done with. You Catholics won't be able to do this ever again. That's what he's saying, Ruben.
Yeah, after that, he went on to denigrate Christianity. And he was, there's no faith that tells you you're right. Everybody else is wrong. That's what he's telling her. There's no faith that tells you it's your job to stand out here and shame people for something they have a right to do. They might have a right to do it through the civil authorities, but in God's eyes, they have no right. Evil has no right.
And here's the problem with this former fallen away Catholic, is that he's bought into what a lot of fallen away Catholics have bought into. It's called relativism. See, a real Catholic believes that Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the life, and that the Catholic Church is the pillar and foundation of truth. Ergo, the Catholic Church teaches the doctrines of Christ. A fallen away Catholic doesn't believe in that. He believes in moral relativism, which is my truth is my truth and your truth is your truth. And there is no truth. Absolutely. Everybody has their own piece of the truth on planet Earth. That's what this guy is. He's fallen into the heresy of relativism.
That's right. He goes on to say that he was saying, we can talk about your Christian faith. How about your Christian faith believes in shaming people? How about your Christian faith believes in telling people that you know what's right for their bodies? About how your Christian faith tells you that you know what's right for their families. And Sims was undeterred after she said, "Hey, get the camera out of my face. Let's go protest out in front of her house and tell her what's right for her body," he said as the woman attempted to make a call on her cell phone. Can you believe this is a grown man, a politician, and he's going to stoop to that we're going to go.
This guy represents us, every American in Congress. We're not talking about some pot-smoking millennial, from Berkeley. We're talking about a U.S. Representative that speaks in behalf of all of us, in affairs, international and foreign affairs. This is shameful, Ruben, that we have people like this that are running the country.
Yeah. Yes, it says there's nothing loving, nothing kind. This is a racist act of judgment, and you have no business being out here. It's a spiritual works of mercy. We're out there.
So he called praying the rosary in public as the racist act. That's what he just said.
Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, Our Lady of Fatima said that the most powerful moments of praying the rosary is when you pray them in public. Our Lady of Fatima said the most powerful location to pray the rosary is in public.
Wow. Yeah, I do remember her saying that. These are, as Padre Pio calls it, his weapon. The rosary is a weapon, and exactly what was going on there. She resorted to continue praying, working those beads, and she was just under control and just doing what she had to do. He goes on to say, this is absolutely pathetic. Actually, the commentators
Dave Rubin said this is interesting because Dave Rubin, he's a homosexual libertarian TV talk show host. Okay. And after he saw the video of a fellow homosexual, he said this, quote, absolutely pathetic bullying by a tolerant progressive politician of an elderly woman exercising her right to free speech. What an absolute embarrassment this guy is. Good for you, Dave Rubin. I may not agree, with your views on homosexual marriage, but at least he's willing to call out a fellow, homosexual practitioner for his practices that are unbecoming of any man.
Yeah. Engineer just pointed out that we may have said that he was a U.S. congressman. He's a Pennsylvania state representative.
Oh, okay. Thanks for the
and
Rich.
retractions. Corrections
Thank
and
you, Rich.
retractions. And then Mike Cernovich tweeted, Pennsylvania State Representative Brian Sims targeted a protester for her race and gender, an old white lady. Why isn't this banned as a hate speech and racial discrimination, he said. Yeah, because the whites are not a protected class. That's how they look at it. And then he's an attorney, as per his Twitter account. Would you think or hope that this type of behavior, verbally abusing and harassing a solitary older Christian woman praying silently, would be frowned upon by the Pennsylvania Bar Association if a formal ethics complaint was filed?
I hope so.
Filed, yeah, said John D. John D. said that in a tweet. And the great state of Pennsylvania should be utterly embarrassed by having this man be a representative, tweeted Catherine Ann Lambert. He may believe and advocate for what he wants, but this is not the way to do it. Absolutely zero professionalism. And Jesse, we have a caller on the line. We have Kenny.
Put him on. Kenny, you're on. Go.
You there. Kenny, you on?
Mr. Kenny.
Okay, maybe hold on. I think
we'll probably take him on the next.
I think the engineer was still.
Yeah, we'll take him on the next.
Okay, you're there, Kenny?
Yeah. Just a real quick comment. It's a great show you guys are doing. And one of the things I wanted to add that sometimes is lost on people when we look at elected officials is we forget the local elections. And that's where all this stuff starts, on banning you from being able to pray in front of an abortion clinic and passing all these other laws. So it behooves us to pay attention to who we're electing locally in the very place in which we live.
That's absolutely true. That's right.
Yeah, because all these guys aspire to higher office. And I remember I confronted Alex Padilla when I lived in Southern California. He was just a local politician in the city of L.A., and I walked up to him. He was at a fundraiser, and I asked him, what's your position on abortion? What's your position on homosexual marriage? And Alex Padilla told me, well, that's not important because it doesn't affect me as a local politician. I said, but you, Alex, aspire to higher offices in the state of California, and if you're wrong on those issues right now, you're going to take them. If we give you more power, you're going to force these issues on us. And guess what? He's I think he's at the top of the food chain in California, and I forget what he is, but he's way up there.
Thanks for calling, Kenny. We're coming up to another break. We'll be right back. We're going into a different topic. When you get back, you don't want to miss it.
This is Terry Barber inviting you, all the men, to a men's conference June 15th at the Sacred Heart Chapel. This is going to be a day where we're going to talk about true masculinity. You know, there's a problem in the Catholic Church today. We have very few men who love the Catholic faith. And I know a lot of the wives that I'm listening to right now saying, I want my husband to be on fire for the faith. Send him to the men's conference. Your son, send him to the men's conference by going to virginmostpowerfulradio.org or call 877-526-2151. That's June 15th. When your husband comes back from this conference, or your son, they're going to have a different view about their Catholic faith, because they're going to meet three men who love Jesus and his bride, the church, and are going to instill in them a love for Christ and his church, the Eucharist, Our Lady. Bring them to virginmostpowerfulradio.org. Sign up there or call 877-526-2151. Full sheen ahead.
It is only because of your continued prayers and generous donations that Virgin Most Powerful Radio can broadcast live each weekday. We count on your spiritual and financial support because you understand the urgent need for Catholic programming that shares the gospel with clarity and charity, but without compromise. Please prayerfully consider becoming a monthly donor. You can set it up with the touch of a button on our website, catholicrc.org.
Buying or selling your home or your business property? This is Terry Barber. Real Estate for Life underwrites the Terry and Jesse Show. And they can connect you to one of 900 pro-life real estate agents around the world. And when they receive their referral fee, they will give 80% of it to a pro-life organization. Wow, that's 80%. realestateforlife.org, 877-LIFE-US1.
Now, back to Jesus 911. If this call is not an emergency, dial 888-526-2151.
Jesus 911, where iron sharpens iron and one man sharpens another. Jesse, just on the break, we have another caller on the line. It's
Sure, let's take him.
Steve. So actually, Steve, are you there?
I'm here.
Steve,
Steve, you're on. Go.
Good morning. Talk to
Hello,
us.
good morning.
Good morning, Steve.
Jesse, Ruben, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
What's up? What's on your mind, Steve? We're talking
So,
about this representative that's out there bullying a woman in front of Planned Parenthood. What do you have to say about it?
Yeah, well, from having been out there on the sidewalk a few times, yeah, it's unfortunate to see something like that, but not uncommon from my experience. You know, we had a conversation earlier about people who come out and do those types of things. It's not very often that happens, but when it does, running a campaign, I've noticed from my personal experience that it does happen when there's usually fewer people out there, and very often when there's a woman out there by herself, or maybe two women, rosary groups or things like that. And it doesn't happen too often when I'm out there praying, or when a man's presence is out there. It doesn't seem to happen as often. But that's why my personal experience.
That's why people that go out there, they recommend 40 Days for Life and all the other good movements out there. You go with a partner. It's biblical. Jesus sent us out 2 by 2.
That's right.
And it's not a good thing to go to the abortion clinic and pray the rosary by yourself. You have to use faith and reason. And one of the reasonable things is society, the secular humanists, they're not only verbally hostile, they're also physically hostile at this point in time. Okay? They believe on putting their hands on you. And if they see that the people out there are nothing but a bunch of women, they're going to be more prone to insult and even to get physical.
That's right. Yeah. Do you have any specific story or anything that comes to mind, Steve?
Yeah, the particular campaign that I run, before I started it, another group had tried to start a 40 days campaign there. And I didn't believe myself at first, but they actually had video of it. And some of the people that were out there started getting harassed. And I think they might have been even paid people from Planned Parenthood. But there's actual video that we have of protesters coming up and yelling at people and chest bumping people, and they were actually kind of pushing people off the sidewalk onto the street, and just bullying and yelling and using speakers and loud horns and things like that. And
four-letter words are common with the pro-abortion movement.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Just being very aggressive and just over the top.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you why. I'll just be honest with you, Steve. It's because they're promoting something that's diabolical. And so that anger, it's an ungodly rage. It's an ungodly anger. They're not just wrong, politically, they're left of center. No, they're promoting something so evil that this anger and this rage that I've seen manifest for 20 years, this is diabolical, no more, no less.
Yeah. And one time, I'll tell you a story. Going back to my days at East LA, down in Cudahy, there was an abortion clinic right behind remember that market, Jesse, the Tianguis on Atlantic and
right.
So there was an abortion clinic there, and some Catholics were out there protesting it. But for some reason, maybe they were taking too much liberty in going onto the property, but they called the sheriffs to come and kick them out, and it was getting kind of ugly. So I made a point to excuse myself and get out of that. I didn't want to be going against my own people, so I had to take myself out of that situation and go volunteer for a different assignment because I couldn't stand up for what they were doing. I believed in what these protesters were doing.
Amen.
Yeah. All right. Well, Steve,
Definitely.
Thanks for calling in, buddy. Keep up the good fight.
Yep. We need
Thank
more
you,
men
my
out
brother.
there.
And
Good job.
yes, absolutely. Calling all nights. Always challenging them to come out and sign up for 40 Days for Life. Thank you, Ruben, Jesse. God bless you guys.
Okay, Steve.
Thanks, partner.
All right. God bless.
Take care.
Ruben, let me deploy a Bible verse that would describe why especially ex-Catholics that are now secular humanists and pro-abortion, why they're so angry. Okay, it's in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 9 through 12. This is very powerful, but this answers everything. This answers the behavior of this representative Brian Sims. Okay, St. Paul writes, the coming of the lawless one, he's talking about the Antichrist, by the activity of Satan will be with all power and with pretended signs and wonders, and with all wicked deception. Notice, wicked deception for those who are to perish, because they refuse to love the truth and so to be saved. So St. Paul here is talking about a category of people that refuse to love the truth. Who's that? Jesus, his gospel, and his church. So there are people that refuse to love the church. And what does he call that? Somebody who refuses to love the church? Wicked deception. Verse 11. Therefore, God sends upon them who? People that refuse to love the truth. God sends upon them people who refuse to love the truth. A strong delusion to make them believe what is false, so that all may be condemned who did not believe the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. In other words, there comes a point in time as a Catholic where you're testing the patience of God so much because you refuse to embrace the truth. You love wicked deception. You know what God does? God does what he did to Pharaoh. He says, I'm done with you, Pharaoh. You know what? You want to have a hard heart? Hey, I'll help you. Okay? That's what God says here. You want to embrace wicked deception like abortion? God is saying, I will give you a strong delusion. You want to believe what's false, Brian Sims? Hey, I'll help you now because I'm going to withdraw grace. I'm going to withdraw blessings. So now it's going to be much easier for you, Brian Sims, because you reject the truth, to embrace wicked deception.
That's right.
That verse, Ruben, it explains everything.
That's right. That's a good verse. Awesome. All right, Jess, we're gonna switch gears. We're gonna go to another topic. It's an article that came out in the New York Times. It says Muslims form community patrol, and some neighbors say no thanks. So, the self-funded group sees itself as a neighborhood watch, but there was an alarm after its cars were spotted in Brooklyn without warning or explanation. A guy by the name of Ma'in Ali remembers the worry he felt when he first spotted the, quote, Punish a Muslim Day screened online. So the letter mailed last spring throughout England encouraged violence that ranged from pulling off a woman's headscarf to bombing mosques. Each attack, the letter instructed, would be rewarded with points. The hate campaign prompted the police in New York and other big cities to expand patrols around mosques and Islamic centers on the specified day. He's talking about England. Isn't that what's going on with women out there that are being attacked by a lot of these guys?
England and Germany,
France. They're coming in from the Middle East.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Ruben, here's what's happening real quick as we.
Yeah.
The Muslims in New York, they're setting up this Muslim community patrol services, and what they're saying is that we want to help the NYPD. We want to be like a neighborhood watch. We'll fund ourselves. We're going to have our own cars. Don't worry, we're not going to carry weapons that we can't. But we want to help the NYPD just spot trouble and stuff and just help them in case there's any anti-Muslim sensibilities in the neighborhood. And a lot of NYP and New York citizens feel very uncomfortable. Can you imagine having civilian Muslims after what happened in New York with the World Trade Center and the attempted destroying of the World Trade Center before that, and you're going to have volunteer Muslims in cars that look like patrol cars patrolling the Brooklyn neighborhood area? This is something here that I think it raises the hair on everybody's neck that's not Muslim in the Brooklyn area.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Ali, he lives in downtown Brooklyn. He said he was consumed by thoughts of his forced children's safety. He said, that's just boiled inside of me. So he moved from Yemen to the United States in 1990, and he said to himself, it's really important to come out and protect Muslims in the community. He added, I have to stand up. As it turns out, he will spend most of his time sitting in a white Ford Taurus, detailed to look like you said, a police car with emergency lights. So it's like civilians on patrol, and it says the goal is growing. Its fleet of 2 cars is going to go to 5, and by the end of the month, eventually expanding citywide. And the group recently held a training led by off-duty officers from the police department's 72nd precinct.
Shameful.
So some of these
political correctness.
Exactly. That's what's happening. Yeah, they want you guys give the Muslims what they need and what they want, and let's not discriminate against them. Which we're not trying to discriminate them. They're not trying to, but
they're not trained law enforcement. And I'll be honest with Ruben, I just don't trust them patrolling the neighborhoods and determining what is a violation of the law and what's not. I'll tell you why. Because they don't think like us. Why? They appeal to the Quran. I don't care what anybody says. For them, a violation of the law is what violates the Quran, not what violates the Constitution or the New York Penal Code. And I'll tell you why people are very, very concerned about this, okay? Because in Muslim countries that enforce Sharia law, they already have it's called the religious police. It's called the Mutawa. And they patrol for religious violations of the Quran. For example, if a male Muslim fails to go to a mosque on Friday, the Mutawa goes to your house. They pull out the man, tie you to your front yard, to a tree in your front yard, in front of your wife and your kids, rip your clothes off, you're naked, and they beat you with steel rods. Okay?
That's right.
A lot of people know about the Mutawa in the Middle East. They're saying, no. This is the beginning of the Mutawa here in the United States. We don't want that here.
Catholics, rise up. It's time to take a stand. All right. We'll be right back.
This is Terry Barber inviting you, all the men, to a men's conference June 15th at the Sacred Heart Chapel. This is going to be a day where we're going to talk about true masculinity. There's a problem in the Catholic Church today. We have very few men who love the Catholic faith. And I know a lot of the wives that I'm listening to right now saying, I want my husband to be on fire for the faith. Send him to the men's conference. Your son, send him to the men's conference by going to virginmostpowerfulradio.org or call 877-526-2151. That's June 15th. When your husband comes back from this conference, or your son, they're going to have a different view about their Catholic faith, because they're going to meet 3 men who love Jesus and his bride, the church, and are going to instill in them a love for Christ and his church, the Eucharist, Our Lady. Bring them to virginmostpowerfulradio.org. Sign up there or call 877-526-2151. Full sheen ahead.
It is only because of your continued prayers and generous donations that Virgin Most Powerful Radio can broadcast live each weekday. We count on your spiritual and financial support because you understand the urgent need for Catholic programming that shares the gospel with clarity and charity, but without compromise. Please prayerfully consider becoming a monthly donor. You can set it up with the touch of a button on our website, catholicrc.org.
Buying or selling your home or your business property? This is Terry Barber. Real Estate for Life underwrites the Terry and Jesse Show. And they can connect you to one of 900 pro-life real estate agents around the world. And when they receive their referral fee, they will give 80% of it to a pro-life organization. Wow, that's 80%. realestateforlife.org, 877-LIFE-US1.
Now, back to Jesus 911. If this call is not an emergency, dial 888-526-2151.
We are back, Jesus 911 on Virgin Most Powerful Radio. We're talking about an article from New York City. Muslims form a community patrol, and some neighbors say no thanks. Jesse, go ahead. Where were we at? We'll pick up where we left off.
Yeah, here's a few things that jump out in the article. One sentence here says, leaders said the group is self-funded and used donations to purchase the cars and navy blue uniforms for its members, many of whom are involved with the Muslim Community Center in Sunset Park. Here's my question. They're self-funded. I bet if you follow the money, I bet it goes to Saudi Arabia or Iran or some other pro-terrorist country that's funding this as a test case in Brooklyn, New York, and they're funding it through the sale of oil as they fund other terrorist activities. Here's another thing that jumps out at me. Okay, it says, volunteers to work in shifts watching over arrival and dismissal times at 3 Islamic schools in Brooklyn and conducting patrols from 5 to 11 p.m., mostly near mosque and bus subway stops in Bay Ridge and Sunset Park, where there are large Muslim populations. It will also link to residents, to food pantries, mentorship programs, and counseling services. It aims to serve anyone who needs help, Mr. Rabah said, not just Muslims. I believe this is a lie room, and I'll tell you why. There's a doctrine in Islam, this is called taqiyya. That's an Arabic word. Taqiyya means you as a Muslim are allowed to lie to the infidel in order to advance your religion. I believe what we're seeing here in Brooklyn, New York is classic taqiyya, which is the doctrine in Islam that you are allowed to lie to non-Muslims, they call us infidels, in order to advance your religion. And also, I'll tell you, because every Muslim in the world that appeals to Quran, which they all do, they see the world in conflict between Muslims and the rest of the non-Muslim worlds. And they're ordered by the Quran to dominate the non-Muslim world, but they will do it piecemeal like they're doing it right now, using taqiyya or using what they call jihad through immigration, by moving in large swaths of Muslims into an area and taking the place entirely.
Yeah, Jess, I find it interesting that, you do a Google search of terrorist attacks in New York, it returns with a whole slew of activity. So it stands to reason that Americans are upset and terrified that the state has become a haven for 22% of all Muslims in the USA live in New York. It doesn't make right when vigilantes take it out on their frustrations on Muslims,
which is very few and far between.
Right. Two wrongs don't make a right. However, I think it's that more people would buy into and support a program of peaceful Muslims who patrol and watch other Muslims suspected of having ties to terrorist cells and organizations. You never hear of peaceful Muslims speaking out against their own for promoting violence.
Because they live in fear.
Yeah.
It's called the battered wife syndrome.
Yeah, but you want to live here in this country. You want to get away from that country you left because of the violence. Well, let's show your true colors, and if you want to become a citizen, then become a citizen. Go all the way in. Don't put one foot in and it's time to stand up, and it was promoted by our last president, the first Muslim to be elected president of the United States. And he insisted that Islam is a religion of peace. Who was he kidding, Jess? As a police officer, I'm concerned about this. I would be concerned that these guys aren't vetted, Jess. These guys create
no background investigation,
they
no
create
training.
their own little troops, Who's to say these guys are not out
Terrorists.
there monitoring police response times? Out there on the street. Hey, look here, we got no cops here. You got 5 cops sitting at the windshields over there. Let's go over here. So they move around freely with without police suspecting them, because now the police are training them and inviting them to do what they're doing. But no, they'd be on the radios or cell phones and say, okay, look, you got two guys over here eating at the Wendy's or something, so this is free to over here on Fifth Avenue. You can go ahead and hit that place or something. I just don't trust it. The system is, call me skeptical or call me, man, jaded or what. But
no, it's called common sense, and it's called the Holy Spirit that gives us kind of that sense that something's wrong here. Houston, we got problems. That comes from the Holy Spirit. Ruben, here's another sentence that jumps out at me. Mr. Rabba, one of the organizers of this Muslim civilian community patrol, he says this: presence is prevention. Just us being around should deter the average criminal mind of doing something to harm another person. Okay, stop. I think this is a joke, this statement made by Mr. Rabba. I'll tell you why. Because what does he appeal to? He doesn't appeal to the Constitution, because Muslims, they appeal to the Quran. And the Quran promotes criminal behavior. The Quran allows you to have slaves. The Quran allows you to have adult child sex. The Quran allows you to have 4 wives and 1 girlfriend. The Quran allows you to kill an apostate that leaves Islam. The Quran allows you to kill a Christian or a Jew that refuses to convert to Islam. The Quran tells you to cut somebody's hands off if you catch them stealing. In other words, this guy is saying, Mr. Rabah, oh, we're here to deter criminals. Guess what? The book that they appeal to is a book that promotes criminal behavior. The Quran.
It promotes violence. You're absolutely right, Jess. And so by they get in tight with the police, and they've got free access to the city, and I just don't like it. It's leaves a bad taste in my mouth. And what about it's creating separatism? Instead of bringing people together, instead of bringing the Jews together with the Muslims, trying to and the other groups that are out there, they're. When you remember back in the day when people would come into Riker Island, what was it? Was that Riker? Not Riker.
Ellis Island.
Ellis Island, yeah.
Ellis Island.
No, I'm thinking Riker as a prison, huh? Okay, so they come into Ellis Island, and but they wanted to be here to be Americans, and this is not what's happening here. Everybody's they're doing their own thing, and they're not assimilating to our culture. Like you said, they're appealing to their Quran and Sharia law, and it's and now they've got a couple people in the house a couple of Muslims now we have in the house,
and they're very outspoken.
Oh yeah,
the new Muslim freshman Congress
Omar Omar and Taib or something. I have her name written down here.
And then the other one that just became, I think, the governor of a state. He was a senator, the one that beat up his girlfriend. Forget his name. Heath Ellison.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's now. I think he's now the governor of a state or a senator, something like that. And here's the problem, Ruben. Look at this one sentence. It says organizers said they were prepared for skeptics, but they did not expect the vitriol unleashed when a photo of their new double-parked cars on Fifth Avenue in Bay Ridge turned up on December 21st on Facebook, and later on Instagram. The hostility spread after a Canadian website posted a snippet on YouTube, and the ugly comments included accusations that the group was a stalking horse for Sharia law and worse. You know what? I agree with Rebel Media insofar as this makes absolute sense to me. Why? Because they're going to want to make New York resemble Europe. What's happening in Europe, or what's been happening there for years? In Europe, there's places called no-go zones where Muslims control entire parts of certain cities. And guess what? The police are no longer welcome there. The police are no longer welcome there. They patrol their own cities. And also, Ruben, they're also seeking converts. Let's just be honest. If they control a large swath of the city, this is for the purposes of conversion to Islam. And I'll tell you, New York is home to an estimated 769,000 Muslims. They make up 9% of the city's population. But guess what? they represent 22% of all Muslims living in the United States. So they're in New York, they're top heavy there in terms of numbers, and that's by design. And they were saying the police department in New York put out some statistics that last year, in 2017, in New York City, there was 14 biased crime incidents recorded against Muslims. Okay, for that year, according to some of the data they put out. Well, guess what, Ruben? There's 14 crimes against Christians a day in Muslim countries under Sharia law. Okay, so New York reports 14 crimes against Muslims in a year in New York. In a year, in the most crowded city in the U.S., I would say that there's 14 crimes a day in countries that are run under Sharia law against Christians.
Jess, have you seen pictures of New York City? During the the Muslims have to pray 5 times a day, so
yes, sir.
They block traffic. They get their little carpets out and they lay them out and
prayer rugs. Yeah,
prayer rugs. They get on and they block traffic. How long would it last if a group of Catholics with their rosaries were stopping traffic, were praying in the street? Do you think NYPD would give us 5 minutes of that? Are you kidding me?
We would be in flex cuffs. We'd all be arrested, and they would put us in buses towards the New York County Jail.
And why do we bend over backwards for a false religion?
I'll tell you why. Because the Democrats, Ruben, the liberals, progressives, they are in bed with the Muslims. Why? Because their common enemy is Catholic Christianity, Christendom in general.
That's right.
But the hatred of the liberal progressives and the Islamists, it makes strange bedfellows because they have a common enemy that they hate more than each other, which is Catholic Christianity.
That's right, Jesse. They hate us with a deep-seated hatred, I think. But
too much common sense on this show, let me tell you.
Yeah, they're more afraid of being called Islamophobes, just like
which is it's a word that was invented by CARE, Ruben.
Yeah,
that's not. It's a word that was invented by the Council of Alliance of Arabic International. CARE is the political. It's the PR arm of Islamism here in the U.S. And they're the ones that came up with that term to try to beat you down anytime you say something critical against.
And Obama had them in the White House all day long.
Yep.
So
Ruben, if you want to get all these titles of these topics, go to our show page, virginmostpowerful.org, or my website, jesseromero.com. You can look at all these articles. There's one we didn't get to. It's kids in Philadelphia Muslim society. They're being taught to chop off non-Muslims' heads for Allah. You want to see that article? Kids in Philadelphia society being taught to chop people's heads off for Allah. Ruben,
where's the outrage, Jess? Where's the outrage? And where are those the Muslim senator or congresswomen? Why aren't they speaking out against this? If it's a peaceful religion, God help us. Stay praying your rosary. The month of May dedicated to Our Lady. So do not fail to say your rosary. Say it twice a day if need be. And God love you. Stay tuned for Gary Mashuda on Hands On Apologetics. It's been great.
Saint Faustina's Prayer for Priests. O my Jesus, I beg thee on behalf of the whole Church, grant it love and the light of thy Spirit, and give power to the words of priests, so that hardened hearts might be brought to repentance and return to thee, O Lord. Lord, give us holy priests. Thou thyself maintain them in holiness. O divine and great High Priest, may the power of thy mercy accompany them everywhere, and protect them from the devil's traps and snares, which are continually being set for the souls of priests. May the power of thy mercy, O Lord, shatter and bring to naught all that might tarnish the sanctity of priests. For thou canst do all things. Amen. Virgin most powerful, pray for us.